Keir Starmer's perspective, the Prime Minister, he wants the King to essentially butter up President Trump, because Trump has a huge fascination with the royal family, a huge love for the royal family. So the King rolling out the red carpet.
I don't understand how it was going to be a successful diplomatic operation when we'd had the President of the United States trying to turn Canada into the 51st state, and that is the King's realm.
Yeah, well, it's a huge conundrum, isn't it?
Just 1 minute ago, Britain was thrown into complete shock. A stunning development from Buckingham Palace has set the entire country on edge. Reports claim that King Charles has delivered an unprecedented message to Prime Minister Keir Starmer, one that could change the future of the nation in an instant. And now whispers are turning into shouts. Streets are erupting with speculation, and the political world is bracing for an emergency election no one saw coming. What just happened behind those closed doors? Why has the King stepped in, and why is Starmer suddenly facing the biggest crisis of his leadership? 1 minute ago, a shockwave rippled through Westminster as insiders leaked a stunning claim. King Charles has privately urged Prime Minister Keir Starmer to call an emergency general election. It began as a whisper. A rumour passed from one advisor to another, but within moments the message exploded across political circles. Britain now finds itself standing at the edge of an unexpected political storm, with tensions rising faster than anyone can control. According to the sources, the King expressed deep concern over the current chaos gripping the nation. And while the monarchy has no direct political role, this rare intervention has rattled every corner of government. Suddenly, ministers are scrambling, the opposition is celebrating, and the public is demanding answers. In this fictional scenario, the drama escalates rapidly. Reports say Starmer arrived at Buckingham Palace under the impression of a standard briefing, only to discover the meeting was anything but ordinary. For weeks, the country has been wrestling with economic frustration, internal party divisions, and growing anger over leadership decisions. But no one expected the tension to reach the palace, and yet here it was. An unexpected confrontation between the Prime Minister and the monarch. One that left Starmer reportedly stunned and speechless. As the story spreads, the political world is now buzzing with one question. What did the King say that shook the Prime Minister to his core? Observers claim the meeting was short, intense, and highly emotional. The King, known for his calm approach, allegedly adopted a far more direct tone, warning that the country's rising unrest could no longer be ignored. Many believe this fictional scenario reflects a growing national frustration, one that has been building quietly but suddenly erupted to the surface. And now the palace meeting has become the symbol of a nation losing faith in the direction it is headed. Starmer, once confident in his authority, now finds his position under enormous pressure, with party MPs demanding clarity and the public demanding action. Outside Westminster, the reaction has been explosive. Social media is overflowing with speculation, theories, and outrage. Some are shocked that the monarchy would deliver such a powerful message, while others insist the intervention was long overdue. Supporters of the Prime Minister argue that this drama is exaggerated, insisting that the government remains stable. But critics are pushing a very different narrative, one claiming the King's message was not simply a suggestion, but a warning. And if this version of events is true, it would mark the biggest moment of political tension between a British monarch and a sitting Prime Minister in decades. Inside Downing Street, panic is quietly spreading. Advisors are working overtime, drafting statements, debating responses, and trying to control the narrative. The Prime Minister is said to be weighing his options carefully, knowing that any decision he makes next could determine his entire legacy. Does he resist the pressure and hold firm, or does he surrender to the storm building around him and agree to an early election? MPs are already splitting into factions, some urging Starmer to stand strong, while others beg him to avoid a showdown with the palace. The atmosphere is electric, unstable, and unpredictable. What makes this fictional moment so dramatic is what comes next. If Starmer chooses to call an emergency election, the nation will be thrust into a campaign period filled with fear, anger, and uncertainty. Parties that will scramble for control, voters will be forced to decide the future under extreme pressure, and the international community will watch closely. But if Starmer refuses, the backlash could turn even worse. The public might view him as defiant or disconnected, while critics could seize the moment to push for his removal. Either way, he is trapped in a political vice with no easy escape. This is the moment everything changes, a moment that will fuel endless debate, fierce arguments and non-stop speculation. And as the tension escalates, one thing becomes clear. Britain is now standing at the threshold of a dramatic turning point. The King's alleged intervention has set off a chain reaction no one can control, and the consequences are only just beginning to unfold. As the shock from the King's reported intervention spreads, Westminster enters a state of controlled chaos. Ministers move through Downing Street with tight faces, avoiding cameras, avoiding questions, avoiding the growing sense that something has gone terribly wrong. Rumours now circle like vultures. Some say Starmer left the palace visibly shaken. Others claim he argued fiercely behind closed doors. No one truly knows what happened in that private meeting, but what's undeniable is this. The political atmosphere has changed overnight. The calm confidence that once surrounded the government has evaporated, replaced by a nervous tension that can be felt in every corridor of power. Even senior advisors, usually the first to dismiss panic, now whisper that an emergency election might be unavoidable. The fictional scenario intensifies as MPs begin to break ranks. Members from Starmer's own party demand clarity, complaining that they cannot defend the government without knowing the truth of what the King said. Some urge the Prime Minister to address the nation, calling for a public statement to steady the ship. But others fear that any statement now might only fuel the fire, feeding a public already hungry for dramatic answers. Silence, however, is making things worse. Every hour without an explanation invites new speculation. Did the King question Starmer's authority? Did he express frustration with the government's handling of key issues? Did the meeting turn confrontational? These questions hang over Westminster like storm clouds ready to burst. Meanwhile, the opposition senses an opportunity too powerful to ignore. Critics of the Prime Minister immediately seize the moment, framing the palace meeting as a sign of collapsing leadership. They argue that the government has lost touch with the public, lost control of the narrative, and lost the confidence of the nation. And whether true or not, the message spreads quickly. Newspapers run headlines suggesting political turmoil. Commentators argue about constitutional boundaries, and protesters gather outside Parliament demanding an early election. The tension feels almost theatrical, a dramatic unfolding of events that pulls the entire country into suspense. The idea that the King himself might have stepped in, even in this fictional storyline, gives the crisis an enormous sense of gravity. Inside Downing Street, the Prime Minister's team faces an impossible challenge. They must protect the image of stability while acknowledging that something significant has happened. Advisors draft and redraft talking points, hoping to strike the perfect balance between caution and reassurance. But every version sounds either too weak or too defensive. The fictional pressure surrounding the Prime Minister intensifies, and he appears increasingly isolated. Some inside his circle whisper that Starmer should call the election immediately to seize control of the narrative. Others warn that doing so now under this cloud of royal influence would make him look politically cornered. Either choice could define the rest of his career. Outside, the public is more divided and more emotional than ever. Supporters of Starmer argue that the country must remain calm, that the Prime Minister is still in charge, and that rumours are being exaggerated. Yet millions of others believe the palace meeting signals something far more serious, a sign that even the monarchy is losing patience. People gather in town squares, holding signs, chanting, recording videos and demanding accountability. On social media, the phrase emergency election now trends across all platforms. Influencers, commentators and anonymous accounts spread theories faster than journalists can debunk them. Facts and speculation blend together until the line between them becomes impossible to see. This fictional crisis grows deeper as foreign observers begin commenting. International news outlets report on the tension between Downing Street and Buckingham Palace, fueling global curiosity. Analysts warn that political instability in Britain could affect markets, alliances and diplomatic relations. As suddenly, the situation is no longer a domestic controversy. It becomes an international topic. Investors grow nervous. Allies express concern. Rival nations watch closely, sensing vulnerability. The pressure on Starmer increases with every passing minute, as if the entire world is waiting to see whether he rises to the moment or crumbles under the weight. Behind closed doors, Starmer faces his own internal conflict. Calling an emergency election could give him a chance to prove his strength, rally supporters and secure a renewed mandate. But it could also expose him to defeat, humiliation and the end of his leadership. Refusing to call one might preserve stability in the short term, but could inflame tensions with both the public and political rivals. In this fictional moment, he sits at the edge of an impossible decision, surrounded by advisors who cannot agree and haunted by the echo of the king's alleged message. The silence inside his office becomes heavier, thicker, almost suffocating. And so the crisis grows. Every hour adds new pressure. Every rumour adds new fuel. Every leaked detail adds new uncertainty. Britain stands on the edge of a political cliff, with no one certain whether Starmer will step forward or step back. The King's alleged intervention has become the spark that ignited a national firestorm, and the flames are spreading rapidly. People across the country now wait, breathless and anxious, for the Prime Minister's next move. Whatever happens next will mark a defining moment in this fictional tale, a turning point that will shape the entire direction of the unfolding drama. As the fictional crisis deepens, the Prime Minister's silence becomes the loudest sound in Britain. The longer Starmer refuses to speak publicly, the more the nation begins to assume the worst. Commentators on live broadcasts describe the situation as unprecedented, volatile and dangerously unpredictable. Even political veterans, people who have seen governments rise and fall, admit they have never witnessed a moment quite like this. The idea that the Prime Minister may have been pressured into an emergency election by the King, true or not, has sent shockwaves through the entire system. And in every corner of the country, people are glued to their phones waiting for the tiniest update, the smallest leak, anything that could reveal what Starmer plans to do next. Inside Parliament, the tension reaches breaking point. Senior MPs hold late-night meetings behind heavy wooden doors, their voices rising in heated argument. Some shout that Starmer must show strength, insisting that the government cannot appear to be bending to royal influence. Others argue that refusing an election will fuel the anger already boiling in the streets. A few speak in hushed tones, warning that ignoring the palace could trigger a constitutional storm. Every MP seems to have a different opinion, but everyone agrees on one thing. This fictional moment has become the most dangerous challenge of Starmer's leadership, and no one knows how he will respond. Meanwhile, Downing Street becomes a fortress of secrecy. Security is tightened, windows are covered, and the usual flow of aides and ministers slows to a crawl. Journalists gather outside the gates shouting questions that go unanswered. Rumours swirl that Starmer is locked in back-to-back emergency meetings. Advisors clash over strategy, debating whether to announce the election, deny the rumours, or delay everything until tempers cool. But the truth is simple, there is no perfect choice. Every option carries risk. Every path leads to conflict. And as the fictional pressure from the palace hangs over the government, the weight of the decision becomes unbearable. The public reaction grows more feverish by the hour. Crowds gather outside Buckingham Palace, chanting demands, waving flags, and filming every moment for social media. Others surround Parliament holding signs that read "Election Now" and "We deserve answers." Some even speculate that the King's alleged message reflects frustration shared by millions across the country. Whether the claims are exaggerated or not doesn't matter. The idea has already taken hold, and once the public believes the monarchy has stepped into the political arena, even in this fictional storyline, the entire situation becomes explosive. People argue in cafes, on buses, in workplaces, each convinced they know what really happened inside that private room. Around the world, the fictional situation spirals into a spectacle. Foreign journalists describe Britain as a nation on the edge of an extraordinary political moment. Analysts warn that investor confidence is fragile. Allies ask for clarification. Diplomatic missions quietly prepare for the possibility of sudden change. The idea of a snap election, triggered not by Parliament but by royal pressure, captures global attention, and every hour that passes adds more fuel to the drama. Britain suddenly looks unstable, unpredictable and divided. The fictional crisis has become a story with no clear ending, one that grips international audiences as tightly as it grips the British public. Behind the closed doors of his office, Starmer wrestles with the consequences of every possible decision. If he calls the emergency election, he risks appearing weak, as if he bowed to pressure. But if he refuses, the backlash could become uncontrollable. Political opponents could accuse him of clinging to power. The public could turn against him. Even his own MPs might revolt. The fictional scenario traps him in a perfect storm, with the king's alleged message acting like a shadow he cannot escape. He replays the conversation in his mind, searching for clarity, searching for a path forward, searching for anything that could restore the confidence slipping away from him. The country's institutions begin to show signs of strain. Civil servants prepare contingency plans for both outcomes, as if expecting a sudden announcement. Party headquarters scramble to update campaign materials, unsure whether they will be needed tomorrow or never. Pollsters work late into the night, releasing rapid-fire surveys that show a nation divided down the middle. Some voters demand immediate change. Others fear the chaos an early election would unleash. Everyone feels uncertain, restless and anxious. The fictional crisis has transformed into a national conversation that no one can escape. And through it all, rumours continue to leak. Some say the king expressed disappointment with the government's direction. Others claim he delivered a strong message about national unity. Still others insist the conversation was misinterpreted entirely. But in the absence of facts, the rumours become powerful enough to shape the entire crisis. People are no longer reacting to reality. They are reacting to a story that grows with every passing minute. A story of tension between Crown and government, a story of leadership under siege, a story of a Prime Minister standing at the edge of a political cliff. This is the heart of the fictional drama, a moment where fear, pressure and uncertainty collide. A moment where one decision could determine the fate of the nation. A moment where the Prime Minister must step forward and face a public that demands the truth. And as the nation waits, holding its breath, one thing becomes increasingly clear. Whatever Starmer does next will ignite the next phase of this political firestorm. As night falls across Britain in this fictional storyline, the pressure on the Prime Minister reaches a breaking point. Streets that were once calm now echo with chants, debates and restless energy. People gather around televisions, glued to live streams that promise updates but reveal nothing. Journalists stand outside Downing Street in the Codder repeating the same question again and again. Has Keir Starmer agreed to call the emergency election? Every hour without an answer feels heavier than the last. Even those who support the Prime Minister admit that the silence has begun to look like weakness, as if the government itself is unsure how to respond. And as the tension grows, one thing becomes obvious: something must happen soon or the country's patience will run out entirely. Inside Downing Street, the atmosphere feels suffocating. Advisors pace from wall to wall, their conversations sharp and rushed. Some plead with Starmer to take control of the situation before it spirals even further. Others insist that giving the public what they want will only set a dangerous precedent. Every argument raises the stakes. Every disagreement adds new cracks to the fragile unity of the Prime Minister's inner circle. Some even warn that refusing to act now might trigger internal rebellion, with MPs already hinting at letters of no confidence. The fictional crisis has transformed from a rumour into a political earthquake, and its shockwaves are shaking the government from the inside out. Across the country, the reaction intensifies. Town halls fill with angry voices demanding transparency. Protesters march through major cities, holding signs that accuse the government of hiding the truth. Social media explodes with theories, predictions, and bold claims. Some insist that the king forced Starmer's hand. Others suggest the Prime Minister is planning a dramatic last-minute announcement. The lack of clarity fuels a wave of national anxiety. People want